In the northern reaches of the world, where mountains touched clouds and ancient forests whispered secrets older than memory itself, there existed a kingdom called Valdoria. Once it had been a land of eternal summer, where golden wheat swayed beneath warm skies and fruit trees blossomed year-round. Children played in meadows that never knew frost. Rivers flowed crystal clear beneath sunshine that seemed endless. The people sang songs of gratitude every evening, thanking their beloved ruler, Prince Dorian, whose kindness matched the warmth of perpetual spring. But that was before the curse. Now Valdoria lay frozen beneath endless autumn. Leaves fell continuously from skeletal trees, covering everything in shades of copper, amber, and dying gold. The sky remained perpetually gray. Cold winds howled through empty streets. Crops withered before harvest. Animals fled to warmer lands. The people grew thin and desperate, huddling around fires that barely kept the chill away. And Prince Dorian had vanished. Some said he abandoned his kingdom. Others whispered darker tales. The truth, as it often is, was far stranger than anyone imagined. Deep within the castle that crowned the highest mountain, behind doors sealed by magic no locksmith could open, Prince Dorian remained trapped. But he was no longer entirely human. The curse had transformed him slowly, painfully. His skin had become bark. His fingers had lengthened into branches. Leaves grew from his hair. Roots spread from his feet, anchoring him to the stone floor of his own throne room. He could not move. He could barely speak. He was becoming a tree, an autumn tree, forever shedding leaves that would never return. The witch who cursed him had been clear about the terms. You have everything, she had hissed, yet you gave nothing to those who needed it most. Now you shall become like autumn itself, beautiful but dying. Admired but lifeless. Only when someone loves you not for what you were but for what you have become will this curse break. Until then your kingdom shall mirror your heart. Cold, fading, forgotten. 3 years had passed since that terrible night. 3 years of endless autumn, 3 years of isolation and despair. But destiny, like seasons, eventually turns. Her name was Marin. She was nobody special, or so everyone believed. An orphan raised by the village baker in the lowlands beyond Valdoria's borders. She had brown hair that never stayed properly braided, eyes the color of storm clouds, and hands perpetually stained with flour. She was too curious, the baker often complained. Too restless, always asking questions nobody could answer, always wandering where young women had no business going. But Marin possessed something rare. She noticed things others overlooked, the way spiderwebs caught morning dew. How birds changed their songs before rain, the patterns frost made on windows. She saw beauty in small, forgotten moments, and she remembered stories, especially one story. When she was 7 years old, a traveling merchant had stopped at the bakery. While warming himself by the fire, he spoke of Valdoria, the cursed kingdom where autumn never ended. He described the lost prince, the dying land, the sealed castle. Most dismissed it as fantasy. But Marin listened. She remembered. And as years passed, she wondered, what if the story was true? What if someone could help? On her 20th birthday, Marin made a decision that would change everything. She packed a small bag with bread, cheese, a warm cloak, and the only thing her mother had left her before dying, a silver compass that never pointed north. Instead, its needle always spun toward whatever the holder's heart truly sought. The baker protested. The journey is too dangerous. The kingdom is cursed. You will die in those frozen mountains. Perhaps Marin replied quietly, but I must try. Why? The baker demanded. What is Valdoria to you? Marin touched the compass, because everyone deserves a chance to be saved, even princes, even kingdoms, even me. Before dawn, she left. The journey took 17 days. She crossed rivers swollen with autumn rain. She climbed paths where frost made every step treacherous. She slept in caves and hollow trees. Wolves howled in the distance. Once bandits approached, but something in her steady gaze made them turn away. The compass led her always forward, its needle pointing toward something she could not yet see. Finally, she reached Valdoria's border. The difference was immediate and terrible. Beyond an invisible line, summer ended. Autumn consumed everything. Trees stood like skeletal hands reaching toward gray skies. Leaves fell constantly, endlessly, covering roads and houses and fields. The air tasted of decay and cold. No birds sang. No children played. The few people she saw moved like ghosts, hollow-eyed and silent. Marin walked through abandoned villages, past empty marketplaces, through orchards where fruit rotted on dying branches. Her heart ached. This was not just a curse on one man. This was the death of an entire kingdom. The compass pulled her ever upward toward the mountain castle. It took 3 more days to reach the gates. They stood open, rusted, covered in vines that had long since died. No guards remained. The courtyard was a cemetery of fallen leaves piled so deep they reached her knees. The castle itself looked like something from a nightmare. Windows dark, towers crumbling, walls covered in creeping frost, yet the compass pointed forward. Marin entered. Inside, silence pressed against her ears, dust covered everything, tapestries hung in tatters, furniture lay overturned and forgot. She walked through hallways lit only by gray light filtering through broken windows. Her footsteps echoed. Once she thought she heard breathing, but when she turned, nothing was there. The compass led her to enormous double doors at the castle's heart. They were sealed, covered in thorny vines that seemed to writhe even without wind. She touched them carefully. They were cold as ice. "Is anyone there?" she called. Silence answered. She tried again. "My name is Marin. I have traveled far. I mean no harm." For a long moment nothing happened. Then, barely audible, a voice responded. A voice like wind through dying leaves. Like branches creaking, like autumn itself speaking. "Leave. This place is cursed. You will find only sorrow here." Marin pressed her hand against the frozen doors. "I did not come all this way to leave. I came to help. You cannot help. No one can. The curse cannot be broken. Every curse can be broken." She spoke firmly. "Every winter eventually ends. Every autumn leads to spring, not this autumn." The voice grew sadder. "I am beyond saving. Let me try." "Why?" The voice demanded, echoing the baker's question. "What am I to you?" Marin thought carefully. She touched the compass. "You are someone who needs help. That is enough." The thorny vines suddenly retreated. The doors swung open. Beyond them lay the throne room, and there Marin saw something that made her heart break and wonder simultaneously. In the center of the vast chamber stood a tree unlike any she had ever seen. Its trunk was thick and twisted. Its branches spread wide, reaching toward windows where gray light filtered through. Autumn leaves, copper and gold, covered every branch, but this was no ordinary tree. She could see the shape of a man within the bark, a face beautiful and sorrowful, barely visible beneath wood and leaves, hands that had become branches, feet that had become roots. He was trapped between human and tree, dying slowly, unable to move or escape. Prince Dorian. Marin approached slowly. She was not afraid. She was heartbroken. "What happened to you?" she whispered. His eyes, still human, still blue as summer skies, opened. They were filled with such sadness that Marin felt tears on her own cheeks. "I was cursed." His voice came from everywhere and nowhere, from the rustling leaves, from the creaking branches. 3 years ago, for my selfishness, for my pride, I had everything but gave nothing. Now I am becoming what I always was, beautiful on the surface, hollow within. You are not hollow. Marin reached out and gently touched the bark of his trunk. "I can feel your heartbeat. Trees have hearts too." A single leaf fell from his branches. "Do not waste your kindness on me. The curse cannot be broken. I have accepted my fate. I have not." Marin sat down at the base of his trunk. "Then tell me everything. Tell me about the curse. Tell me about yourself. Tell me your story. Why?" His voice held confusion. "Why would you care?" Because Marin said simply, "Everyone has a story worth hearing. Even cursed princes, especially cursed princes." So he told her. He spoke of his childhood raised in luxury and love. His parents, a king and queen who died when he was young, leaving him to rule too soon. The responsibilities that overwhelmed him. The advisors who flattered rather than guided. The wealth that isolated him from his people's struggles. He spoke of becoming cold, distant, focused only on maintaining appearances and power. He described the night the witch came, an old woman begging for shelter during a storm. How he had turned her away, too concerned with an important banquet to bother with a beggar. Her curse had been immediate and terrible. As his story ended, night had fallen. The throne room grew dark. Marin lit a small candle from her pack. Its warm light danced across the bark and leaves. "You made a mistake," she said quietly, "but you did not deserve this." The witch disagreed. Marin stood and looked directly into his trapped eyes. "Then we shall prove her wrong." How he sounded hopeless. "The curse requires someone to love me as I am now, not as I was, not as I might become, but as this, a dying tree, a monster who could love such a thing." Marin smiled softly. "Let me stay. Let me try. You should leave. Save yourself. This kingdom is doomed, perhaps." She spread her cloak on the floor beside his roots. "But I have nowhere else I need to be." That night Marin slept in the throne room beside the cursed prince. She dreamed of spring. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Marin did not leave. Every morning she woke and spoke to Dorian. She told him about her life, her childhood, her dreams. She described the world beyond the castle, the changing seasons she had known, the small beauties she had noticed. She read him books from the castle library, stories of adventure and hope. She sang songs the baker had taught her, simple melodies that filled the empty halls with warmth. She also cared for him as one would care for any tree. She brought water from the castle well and poured it carefully around his roots. She gently removed dead leaves from his branches. She opened windows so fresh air could circulate. She spoke to him constantly, the way her mother had once said you should speak to growing things. Dorian resisted at first. He told her to leave. He insisted she was wasting her time. He grew angry, making his branches shake and leaves fall like rain. But Marin never wavered. She simply continued, patient and kind, day after day. Slowly, something changed. Dorian began to respond differently. He asked questions about her stories. He requested specific books. He admitted he looked forward to her morning greetings. His voice, which had been hollow and despairing, gained warmth. His eyes, which had been dull, began to shine again. One evening, as snow began to fall outside, the first snow Valdoria had seen in 3 years, Maren sat reading by candlelight. She paused and looked up at Dorian's face in the bark. "May I ask you something?" she said. "Anything. If the curse broke tomorrow, if you became human again, what would you do differently?" He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I would walk among my people, not above them. I would listen before commanding. I would give before taking. I would remember that a kingdom is not stone and gold. It is the people who live within it, their hopes, their struggles, their hearts." Maren smiled. "Then you have already changed, but I am still cursed, perhaps." She reached out and touched his bark gently. "Or perhaps you are simply becoming who you were always meant to be." Winter deepened. Maren explored the castle, discovering rooms filled with forgotten treasures. She found the kitchens and learned to cook simple meals. She found the gardens and began clearing away dead plants, preparing soil for future spring. She found the royal chambers and cleaned them, opening windows, letting light return. She also ventured into the dying kingdom. She met the few remaining villagers, shared what food she could, listened to their stories. She promised them hope was coming. Most did not believe her. But some, seeing the determination in her eyes, began to hope despite themselves. One night during the longest darkness of winter, Maren returned to find Dorian's leaves glowing faintly, a soft golden light like captured sunshine. "What is happening?" she whispered. "I do not know." His voice held wonder. "I feel strange, warm, as though something inside me is waking." Maren touched a glowing leaf. "It is beautiful. You are beautiful." The words escaped him before he could stop them. "You have been beautiful since the moment you arrived. Not because of your appearance, but because of your heart. You saw a monster and chose kindness. You saw hopelessness and chose faith. You gave everything expecting nothing." Maren felt her own heart beating faster. "I did not do it expecting anything. I know, that is why it matters." His eyes met hers through the bark. "Maren, I must tell you something. These months with you have been the happiest of my life. Not my life before the curse when I had everything. But now, like this, trapped and helpless, because you made me see what I was too blind to notice. That magic is not in power or gold. It is in connection, in conversation, in someone choosing to stay when they could leave. You taught me how to be human again, even as I became a tree." Tears filled Maren's eyes. "You taught me something too. What could I possibly teach you?" "That home is not a place," she whispered. "It is wherever someone truly sees you, wherever you are not alone. I have been alone my entire life until I found you." The glowing intensified. The entire tree blazed with golden light. The throne room filled with warmth. Leaves that had been falling for 3 years suddenly stopped. The bark began to crack. "Maren," Dorian's voice was urgent. "I need you to know something before this ends, whatever way it ends. I love you, not because you might break my curse, but because you stayed when anyone else would have run, because you saw me at my worst and chose to see the best, because your kindness made me want to be better, because you are the spring I thought I would never see again." Maren stepped forward and pressed both hands against the glowing trunk. She felt his heartbeat beneath the bark, strong and steady. "I love you too, not the prince you were, not the man you might become, but you, exactly as you are, tree and man and everything between. You are not a curse. You are a miracle I was meant to find." The light became blinding. The bark shattered like glass. The branches dissolved into golden dust. The roots retreated into the stone. And standing where the tree had been, human and whole and free, was Prince Dorian. He was tall, with dark hair that held traces of autumn leaves. His eyes were the blue of summer skies. His hands, human hands, reached immediately for Maren. She stepped into his arms without hesitation. They held each other as golden light swirled around them as the curse finally completely broke. Outside, across the entire kingdom, change swept like a wave. The gray sky split open. Sunlight poured through. The endless autumn leaves stopped falling. Green buds appeared on dead branches. Frost melted. Rivers flowed clear and warm. Fields that had been barren suddenly sprouted new growth. Animals returned. Birds sang. Children laughed for the first time in 3 years. Spring had come to Valdoria. In the throne room, Dorian and Maren pulled apart just enough to see each other's faces. Both were crying. Both were smiling. "You broke the curse," Dorian whispered. "You saved me. You saved everyone." Maren shook her head. "We saved each other." The castle doors burst open. Villagers flooded in, drawn by the light, by the change, by hope returning. They found their prince, alive and human, standing beside a young woman whose hand he held as though it were the most precious thing in existence. Dorian addressed his people, his voice strong but humble. "I was cursed because I forgot what truly matters. I forgot that a kingdom is nothing without its people. That power means nothing without compassion. That wealth means nothing without generosity. I failed you. But this woman, Maren, she reminded me what I had forgot. She taught me that love is not something you command or demand. It is something you earn through kindness, patience, and choosing to see the best in others even when they cannot see it themselves." He turned to Maren. She came from beyond our borders. She owed us nothing, yet she gave everything. She stayed when she could have left. She hoped when hope seemed impossible. She loved when love seemed foolish. She is the reason spring has returned. She is the reason I am human again. She is the reason Valdoria will live. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Dorian held up his hand. One more thing. He knelt before Marin there in front of everyone. Marin, you have already saved my life. You have already saved my kingdom. I have nothing left to offer except myself. But if you will have me not as a prince, but simply as a man who loves you more than words can express, I would be honored to spend the rest of my days trying to deserve the gift you have given me. Marin pulled him to his feet. You already deserve it. And yes, yes to everything. They were married in the castle gardens when spring was in full bloom. The entire kingdom celebrated. Flowers covered every surface. Music filled the air. People danced and feasted and rejoiced. The witch who had cursed Dorian appeared briefly at the edge of the celebration, smiled with satisfaction, and vanished, her work complete. Years passed. Valdoria flourished. Under Dorian and Marin's rule, the kingdom became known not for wealth or power, but for compassion and wisdom. They walked among their people. They listened. They helped. They remembered. Every autumn on the anniversary of the curse, they would return to the throne room where they first met. A small tree grew there now, planted by Marin, a reminder of what had been and what had been overcome. They would sit beneath its branches and tell their story, and they would remind each other that the greatest magic is not in curses or spells. It is in choosing kindness when cruelty would be easier. It is in staying when leaving would be simpler. It is in loving not despite someone's flaws, but including them. It is in seeing the person trapped inside the monster and refusing to give up on them. Children would gather to hear the tale, the story of the autumn prince and the girl who loved him, the story of a curse broken not by magic or prophecy, but by simple, stubborn, patient love. And in the castle gardens, where roses bloomed year-round and butterflies danced in eternal spring, visitors would sometimes see two figures walking hand in hand. A prince who had been a tree, a baker's daughter who had been a savior. Two people who had found in each other exactly what they had been searching for all along. Home, hope, heart. The kingdom of Valdoria never knew another curse, but it never forgot the lesson learned during those 3 years of endless autumn, that beauty fades, power corrupts, wealth vanishes, but kindness endures, love transforms. And sometimes the most extraordinary magic happens when an ordinary person makes an extraordinary choice. To stay, to care, to love, even when, especially when it seems impossible. And they say that if you visit Valdoria during autumn when leaves fall gently and the air grows crisp, you can still feel the echo of that old curse. But now it is not frightening. It is a reminder that darkness always ends, that winter always yields to spring. That curses can be broken by the simple revolutionary act of loving someone exactly as they are. Magic does not choose the powerful. It chooses the kind. And somewhere in a castle on a mountain, beneath a tree that remembers being a prince, love still blooms eternal.